Good morning. Please rise in body or spirit and sing our opening song, Gather the Spirit. Please remain standing as we recite our covenant, and I would like to invite Robin Queenan to please light our chalice this morning. We covenant to embrace another community, to welcome all with open heart and generous spirit, seek to understand others with grace and patience, speak our truths bravely and respectfully, and create a space for all to be heard, acknowledged, and valued. Please take a moment to greet those around you.
I'm glad to see you. I heard the first installment of the movie. I was paralyzed. I wish. I was paralyzed. I couldn't get out of my chair. My eyes shut and
Please be seated. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Delaware County. My name is Marva Williams and I will be leading worship this morning along with Chrissy Bushyager, who's our Director of Religious Education. Music is provided by Joy Thiessen and also by Jeff LeBonde. We gather this morning with diverse backgrounds and with different beliefs, but together we work for positive change in our lives, in our church, and our world. Love is the center of this community. I want to welcome all our friends who are viewing the service on Zoom. Please remember that you can activate closed captioning, and if you would like to speak to others after the service, please remain online for a virtual coffee hour. If you are attending our service for the first time, we extend a special welcome. And please be aware that a representative from our new member team will be available to answer any questions you may have after the service. Now, let us settle into worship with the words of Sarah Eileen Lawal. Spirit of life and love, in this time of uncertainty, of fear and anger, our nation holds its collective breath. In this time when rhetoric blusters about and words are used as weapons, our nation clenches its fist, tightens its shoulders, eyes squeezed shut. Some are preparing for a fight. May we remember we are a people of resilience. We have faced uncertainty before. We have weathered storms. We have been consumed by flames, and we have risen like a phoenix from the ashes. And we will again, we the people. May we remember our shared humanity, our universal kinship and interdependence. As we unclench our fists and breathe together, breathing in love and breathing out peace. May we recognize the spark of the divine in each of us, even those we are not quite sure about. Please remain seated as we sing our centering song, which is actually printed in the back of the gray hymnal. Every week, we bring not just our physical presence to the sanctuary, but those events and concerns that we carry in our hearts. Maybe it's a joy like meeting a new friend or enjoying a beautiful day, or worrying about a friend or a family member who is ill or in a relationship that we're struggling with. This is the time in our service when we invite you to acknowledge a joy or sorrow you are carrying in your heart by dropping a stone in the bowl of water. Please come forward now as you are so moved. And if you are joining us online, please feel free to type your joy or concern in the chat window. I will now drop 2 stones, one for those who are joining us on Zoom, and the other for those who have joys and sorrows that we keep in our hearts.
Ooh, there's my mic. Okay. Is that? Okay. All right, it works. So I know that the order of service says reading, but I tell stories. So we're going to have a story this morning. And it's a story I've told once or twice before. It is by Sarah Squire. And it goes like this. Once, there was a village nestled at the edge of a mountain, right at the base of the mountain. And on the mountain were written the words, "The answer is no." Just in really big letters. Those words were carved into the side of the mountain. And no one living in the town knew why they were there or remembered who had put them there. They'd just always been there, as long as anyone could remember. And it was really helpful for the people in the town because whenever they had a question, they could look up at the mountain and they would know with complete certainty what the answer was. The answer is no. It was obvious. It was so easy. And it worked. It worked really well until one day when old Ma Custis wanted to make dinner for her family. Now, I don't know if you have had this experience. I have had this experience where I go into the kitchen and I just can't decide what to make for dinner. Can't decide what I'm in the mood for. And that was what was happening for old Ma Custis. She could not decide what to make for dinner. So she went out to the mountain and she said, should I make liver for dinner? And the mountain said the answer is no. And Ma Custis was happy because no one in her family liked liver. So then she said, well, should I make chicken for dinner? And the mountain said, the answer is no. So Ma Custis kept trying. Should she make stir fry? Should she make salad? Maybe pancakes? They could have breakfast for dinner. Every time the mountain said, the answer is no. This went on through the night and through the next day and into the next evening, and poor Ma Custis's family had not eaten dinner. They were so hungry. So Ma Custis, she stomped her foot and she shook her head and she said, this is just not right. I want the mountain to say yes sometimes. So she went to the center of town and she rang the bell and she called all the townspeople. And she said, we should change the mountain. The mountain should say the answer is yes. Now the people in the town thought this wasn't a bad idea. It would be good to get a yes for a change when you're used to hearing no. So Mason Sharp, the stonemason, was in town and he said, well, you know what? I could do this. It's going to take me 2-3 weeks, but I could go up there, I could change the carving, and I could have the mountain say the answer is yes. Everyone in town agreed. Mason Sharp worked every day. He climbed up the mountain, he changed the carving, and when he was done, he came back to the center of town, he rang the bell, everyone gathered around, and they were so excited. Ma Custis decided she should be the first one to try the new improved mountain. And so she turned to the mountain and she said, should I make liver for dinner? And the mountain said, the answer is yes. And Ma Custis' children began to weep, and her husband began to shake his head. And Ma Custis said, but my family hates liver. Should I really make liver for dinner? And the mountain said, the answer is yes. Oh my goodness, Ma Custis' children began to wail. Ma Custis said, I promised my family, I promised them I would never make liver again, ever. Should I break my promise? And the mountain said, the answer is yes. Now, Ma Custis, she stomped her foot and she shook her head and she said, this is not right. I am not going to break my promise. But what were they to do? The mountain said the answer was yes. All the townspeople kept talking and debating. They were trying to figure out how to solve this problem when the youngest of the Custis children raised his hand and said, does there only have to be one answer? Couldn't there be more than one answer? No one in town had ever thought about this novel idea. So they began to talk and think, and they began to debate, and finally they decided that the mountain should read, the answer is sometimes no, and sometimes yes, and sometimes wait and see, and sometimes I just don't know. Now, Mason Sharp was standing there through this entire conversation, and he said, you know, I could do this. I want to remind you, I did just finish. The answer is yes, but I can do the work. I don't mind. I really don't mind, but it's going to take me a long time. I put aside all my other work so that I could focus on this, but I can't keep doing that. I mean, this job, to say the answer is sometimes no, and sometimes yes, and sometimes wait and see, and sometimes I just don't know, that's going to take me a long time to carve. It's going to take months. And the people in town agreed that they were okay with that. So in the meantime, they put a sign in front of the mountain just to let people know that the answer was coming. And things in town continued. For the first week or so, Mason Sharp would climb up and he would work on recarving the mountain. But pretty soon, he just got tired of doing that. It was taking a really long time. And the people in town, well, for the first week or so, they just held on to all their questions and waited until the mountain would give them an answer. But after that, I mean, some questions need more quick answers, right? So they started to talk to one another. They started to brainstorm and suggest. They started to find their own answers to questions. And after a while, everyone decided that the sign that was on the mountain at that moment was just perfect. Nothing needed to be changed. The sign read, "The answer is under construction." Thank you for listening to my story.
We were born before the wind, and also younger than the sun. Ere the bonny boat was won, as we sailed into the mystic. And hark now, hear the sailors cry. Smell the sea and feel the sky, and let your soul and spirit fly into the mystic. Yeah, when that foghorn blows, I will be coming home. Yeah, when that foghorn blows, I want to hear it. I don't have to fear it, and I want to rock your gypsy soul, just like way back in the days of old. Then magnificently we will float into the mystic. Yeah, when that foghorn blows, you know I will be coming home. Yeah, when that foghorn blows, I want to hear it, and I don't have to fear it, and I want to rock your gypsy soul, just like way back in the days of old. Then magnificently we will float into the mystic, into the mystic, oh, into the mystic. It's too late to stop now.
This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us. The Share the Plate recipient for August and July is the Media Food Bank. They help alleviate food insecurity and are committed to improving the lives of low-income people by collecting and distributing food and resources. You may provide your offering by using the text number on the screen or placing your offering in one of the boxes in the back of the sanctuary. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, Joy, and Marva. I like to bake. I bake all kinds of things, but I almost always bake and decorate birthday cakes for my family members. Usually I make a simple powdered sugar frosting for cakes, but sometimes for very special cakes, I will make real buttercream frosting. If you've ever made real buttercream frosting, you know that it starts with egg whites and a simple syrup whipped up into a meringue. It takes a while to do this. Lots and lots of beating the egg whites until they form stiff peaks like you find on the top of a lemon meringue pie. And it looks so pretty, a big fluffy cloud in the bowl. And you get this sense of accomplishment at this point in the process. Look at this beautiful thing that I've made. But the next step in making buttercream is to add butter to the meringue. Now, if you're a baker, you know what happens when you add fat or oil to egg whites. They deflate immediately. Oil is death to a meringue. So as soon as you start adding butter to the meringue, it turns into this soupy, gloppy mess. It looks like curdled milk, completely unappetizing. And many folks who are making buttercream for the very first time stop here, assuming that they've somehow messed up the recipe. They curdle their frosting, and there's no way to come back from that. What a waste of ingredients. But bakers know that this always happens when making buttercream. It is part of the process. The frosting will look like a curdled mess until, after 15 or 20 minutes of whipping, it comes back together and turns into a perfect frosting. And the thing is, I know this. I know that my buttercream will turn out fine as long as I am patient and let it whip up. But every time, I have a few moments where I am uncertain. Does it always take this long? I wonder. Did I measure the ingredients correctly? I question, was my butter too cold? Did I not sift the powdered sugar? Did I add too much vanilla? I worry. I don't have enough eggs to make this again. These ingredients are expensive. I don't want to waste them. And every single time, I have to remind myself to trust, to keep moving forward through the uncertainty until suddenly this soupy, gloopy mess starts to look like cottage cheese, which is still not what we want. But then, in another 2 or 3 minutes, it is smooth frosting. I don't know the science behind it. I assume it's magic, but that's what happens. It is perfect, my uncertainty is gone, and I can frost my cake. Uncertainty is uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. It's a close cousin to anxiety. Uncertainty that triggers anxiety is evolutionarily important. It is good to be cautious when entering a dark cave and consider whether there may be bears in there or a sudden drop-off that you can't see. Uncertainty gives us a moment of caution that could save our lives. On the other hand, uncertainty is a trigger for growth and transformation. It forces us to problem solve. It is where creativity flourishes and where new ideas are born, where we discover the depths of our resilience. But when our brains and bodies are flooded with uncertainty, our anxiety can reach levels beyond our coping mechanisms. Worrying and stress impact our sleep, our diets, our ability to concentrate and regulate our emotions. We struggle to make decisions, creativity and problem solving are shut down, and we are stuck. I don't know about you, but I feel like we are in particularly uncertain times right now. There was, of course, a global pandemic that completely upended the concept of normal. Each day we see and experience the effects of climate change. Add to that a divisive and dangerous and violent political system. A little closer to home, here at UUCDC, we are in the uncertain time of a ministerial transition. during which we search for a new minister while also thinking deeply about things like, what do we want the future of our congregation to look like? How do we best convey that to ministerial candidates? And then, of course, there are the regular uncertainties that we all face at times in our lives. Medical diagnoses, parenting, job changes, relationship issues, the car or the furnace making that weird noise. It all boils down to, will it be okay? Will I be okay? Will the people I care about be okay? Our brains are pretty good at juggling a couple of uncertain situations. We can use coping skills and make it through. But when we have times where these questions are layered on top of one another, the calculus becomes so much more challenging. We can rationalize one or two situations. I will probably be okay if this and this happen, but will I be okay if this and that and then this other thing happens? Maybe not. In her novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Zora Neale Hurston writes, there are years that ask questions and years that answer. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've been stuck in some questioning years lately. The uncertainty has layered and it has become exhausting. But that quote, there are years that ask questions and years that answer, has gotten me through some of this. Of course, it reminds me that we live our lives in cycles and seasons. The Hebrew prophets wrote, there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and then the Beatles turned it into a song so we can all remember it. Earth-centered traditions look into the changing of seasons to remind us of times of abundance and times of scarcity. But I've been meditating on this quote for about 6 months, and I've been thinking about asking questions, about wondering. What if we turned our questioning years into wondering years? What if we embraced the wondering? For me, that little semantic trick is helpful. To wonder opens me up to possibilities. When I'm standing in front of a cave, I can wonder if there is a bear inside, but I can also wonder if the cave will provide shelter from the storm. I could even wonder if the cave is full of diamonds. Wondering through uncertainty can help us embrace change. To wonder is rather benign. I make it defensive and rigid in the face of questioning, but wondering feels more like brainstorming or imagining. In this way, uncertainty can provide an opportunity for learning, a catalyst for growth. Another way that I cope with uncertainty is to remind myself of truths. I take stock of the things in my life about which I am certain, my personal values and principles. I have these written down in a credo statement to remind myself. Here at UUCDC, we run a coming-of-age program for our 8th and 9th graders. Throughout the year, our youth explore their UU faith and ways to articulate their personal beliefs. If you've been to one of our coming-of-age services, you've heard the youth give their credo statements. This past year, adults were given the opportunity to explore and articulate their credos in the Building Your Own Theology class, led by Lisa Jacobs. It's helpful to have some guidance in this process, but you can write a credo any time of your life, and I encourage you to do so. It can be as simple as a list of principles that you live by or specific things you believe in. During the early weeks of the pandemic in 2020, I found myself leaning deeply into my credo. One of my core beliefs or certainties is that service and connection not only feed my soul, but make the world a better place. During a time when the world felt scary and uncertain, I wanted to do the little things I could to make it better for me and the people around me. I had scrap fabric in my house and made masks for friends who didn't have them. I shared food with neighbors. My wife and I managed to get my 88-year-old grandma, who lives alone, on a Zoom call with her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren for Easter. Paying attention to my credo, or personal principles, gave me an anchor at a time when I felt adrift. Finally, when I have uncertainties in life, I reach out to other people. Whether we are talking about the big global or national issues, or things that affect just our families, there is no reason to face these things alone. Our communities can support us, wonder and work with us, and remind us of essential truths. My father-in-law, Hank Goldberg, passed away at the end of June after several months of declining health. My wife's family is Jewish. I have long admired the Jewish rituals around death and mourning. Our Jewish friends acknowledge this uncertain time with tradition, prayer, and a reliance on community. This is particularly seen in the practice of Shiva. Shiva is a period of 7 days from the time of burial. The purpose of Shiva is to support mourners through this intense initial time of mourning and slowly prepare them to return to life. During Shiva, the community, extended family, and friends gather at the home of the mourners to provide love, support, and food. So much food. My freezer is still full of food. During the Shiva observance for Hank, old friends that we hadn't seen in years showed up to offer condolence, and extended family showed up multiple times with food, drink, and offers to help every time they walked through the door. The presence of community helps to alleviate some uncertainty. Mourners are reminded that although their loved one is gone, they are still surrounded by love and support. So those are the three things that help me in times of uncertainty: turning questioning into wondering, relying on my credo or beliefs, and connecting with community. One final story very close to home. In these past 2 years at UUCDC, our beloved minister, Reverend Peter Friedrichs, retired, and then we had an interim for a year who was not the right fit, and so we had to find another interim to help guide us through this process. The church elected to extend our interim period from 2 years to 3, basically adding an extra year of uncertainty. But I have noticed our church leaders have embraced this time of transition. They have wondered and brainstormed and dreamed with a focus on growth and future stability. They have continually centered themselves in our shared values, including updating our church covenant to reflect that. They have worked hard and with courage to organize important things like a bylaws revision and policy document updates and the launch of the search committee. They have held town halls and focus groups to ensure that as many members as possible are invited and included in these conversations. None of that would have happened if our church leadership had not come together, had not leaned into community in these uncertain times. They've provided a great example for us. Life is full of uncertainties, big ones and small ones. Our UU faith invites us to embrace uncertainty with wonder and wisdom. And our faith reminds us that we journey together as a beloved community towards a future full of possibility and hope. Amen. Please,
Please join in singing our closing hymn, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. like to thank Chrissy for her wonderful message, and also our musicians for today, the tech team, as well as the hospitality team. We will have refreshments here in the sanctuary, and I hope you all can join us. I'd now like to ask Chrissy to extinguish our chalice, and please join me in reciting our benediction. For those who come seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. And for those who so seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Blessed be